When did a feeling of we need to get out of here immediately save you? My dad is a truck driver and has always told me, if you are on the interstate near a semi and smell burnt rubber, get away from them because they are about to blow a tire. One day driving to work I smell burnt rubber. There was a semi next to me, so I sped up to get ahead of him. Next thing I know I see a huge crash in my rear view with one car going airborne and flipping. I called the accident into 911 and then watched the news and papers the rest of the day. Thankfully no fatalities, but it was nasty. The semi blew a tire and the car next to it in the middle lane swerved to avoid the tire fragment and hit the car in the far lane, causing it to flip. I would have been right in the middle of it all. What just seemed like a bad storm had started. My ex then decided to play with the dog out in the backyard in the rain. I got a weird feeling about how strong the winds were, and despite being called crazy I told my ex she and the dog needed to go down into the basement for shelter with me. Within 15 minutes half my roof was gone. Apparently the storm was a derecho, which I'd not even heard of before that. We were hiking and geocaching up in northern Michigan, where it's pretty rednecky in spots. We were at a designated trail with a small parking lot off on some weird side road, but we decided to check it out anyway. About 5 minutes into the trail we noticed a game camera, but there was no ID on it. Game cameras on public land need to have ID info, and we thought that was really strange. We kept walking a bit, but I just didn't feel right about the camera or walking on this trail. So we turned around and went back to the truck instead of walking the last mile of the trail. When we got back to the truck, this beater pulls up with a couple in it. The guy was just a regular redneck, but the girl in his passenger seat 100% had the nods and was struggling to keep her head up. He looked surprised when we walked out of the trail, and they sat in the lot for a second and then left. Pretty sure they weren't looking to go for a hike. My guess is that was their camera, and they get the notifications when people are on the trail, so they can break into their cars. It happened to us on a family trip in Kentucky years ago, so maybe I'm just a little suspicious. But we decided no more backwoods hidden nature trails for us. Decided to have a look at a culvert covered stream that I hadn't been down before. We weren't expecting it to be much, so no safety call out, weather check, or even bother to let anyone know where the entrance is. Get about 750 meters in, and my buddy notices a load of water pouring in up ahead. We look at each other and go, we need to get out now, apostrophe. In under 5 minutes, the water went from ankle deep and manageable to knee deep and almost pushing us over. We reached a section with some steps, a ladder, and a handrail for inspection, and managed to push the lid off with the water getting deeper every minute. If that ladder had been 10 meters further, we might not have made it. If we'd have slipped, dead. When we got out, it was raining gently. We were soaking wet and just looked at each other with that oh duck look. A bit more above ground exploring, and we worked out that the culvert went under a local canal. If we'd have slipped, we'd have ended up in a sump under a canal and likely never made it out. Nobody knew where we were, what was happening, or how to find us. In all likelihood, the only time they'd know where we died is when our corpses got spat out into the nearby river. A combination of stupidity and stupid good luck, I guess. I've had a few, but one of the most prevalent that comes to mind is when my older sister and I were kids. I was 8 and she was either 10 or had just turned 11. My dad had just bought a new house that wasn't finished being built yet. So we were staying at my grandpa's house for about a month while our new house was being constructed. My sister and I were playing outside when I saw this weird van pull around the corner. I had been taught about creepy white vans in school, so when I saw it, I paid attention and took in the details. Everything except the windshield was tinted. The driver saw us and started to speed up, and I just told my sister we need to get inside. Right as my sister got up, I looked back at the van and saw a guy open the side sliding door and stare straight at us. We made it inside and locked the door. I peeked through the window and saw the van go slowly by while the guy who opened the side door was scanning the yard. I told my mom when she got home about an hour later, and while she said we're right to play it safe and we always should, I heard her tell my dad later that it was probably nothing and we let our imagination scare us. It was a new place in a neighborhood we weren't comfortable in. So that must be it. According to my mom. The next morning, my grandpa woke me and my sister up and told us that there were cops down the street and that a little girl had been abducted. And the police wanted us to tell them about the van we saw. Security cameras from a couple houses down saw the van too. And my grandpa's next door neighbor also had security cameras that showed the van drive by with the side door open and a guy hanging out and looking in our yard. We moved into our new house before we got an update. But my grandpa went to church with the couple whose daughter was abducted. The van was found, along with the clothes the daughter had been wearing. Her body was found in the wetlands a few months later. If we hadn't trusted my gut, that would have been my sister and I. I was walking home from 6th form one day and saw a car following me along the street. I was about 17. Edit. Misremembered my age. Got a really bad feeling, so I hopped on the next bus with the plan to change directions and head home at the bus depot down the road. On the bus, I got a text from a guy who'd stalked me for years on and off, with a picture of my school taken just then, and the names and addresses of 2 of my friends. I freaked. Finally told my parents what was happening. Reported it to the police. He'd driven over 100 miles to try and grab me and my friend and had just missed us cause I hopped on the bus and she had gone home early. He got 2.5 years in prison, suspended with orders not to contact any of the girls involved. Immediately broke that order and got another 5 years on top. I'm really glad I got that bus. Took my friend out for a drink. First time she had been out since having her daughter 12 weeks earlier. Had around then I went to the restroom. Came back to find her having shots at a table with this random dude. Random dude looked at me and I felt flayed alive. Nothing in his eyes but malice. I grabbed my friend's hand. Said loudly we are leaving. Now, we left immediately. I went back the next day to pay the tab we walked out on and the bartender told me that same man was arrested for attacking a woman outside of the bar. Love and respect for the care you showed your friend in the bar. I was about 11 or 12 years old, at a neighbor's house. The sun had already set. It wasn't completely dark yet, but it was close and there was less light by the second. We were sitting on the lawn because we loved watching the sky turn from day to night. Just talking and giggling and carrying on as little girls do. A truck drove up our street. Slower than usual, but not suspiciously slow. Still, I felt my gut sink for some reason I didn't understand. A couple minutes later, it passed by again. And then again after another few minutes. Though not quite as slow this time. I was 100% positive it was the same truck. So I watched it drive away and noticed it started slowing down. I told her to get up. And when the truck made another U-turn and started heading towards us again I told her to run and hide. I don't know if she realized what she was hiding from. But we ended up splitting in 2 directions. She dove behind a bush. And I crouched behind an old car parked in their driveway. We could see each other. And I had a clear shot to the door if I needed to dart in to get a parent. But we heard the truck roll up and stop in front of her house. Someone got out of the truck and started calling for us. I honestly don't remember what they were asking though. We just kept our eyes locked and tried to stay as still and quiet as possible. We probably should have screamed, but I think we were both too scared. The person eventually got in their car and took off. We stayed hidden for what felt like forever, eyes locked, until we finally felt safe enough to run inside. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't notice something and we booked it, or if that person was actually dangerous or not. But I'm glad that I'll never find out. Not to get out of here, but I can't leave this like this moment. My GF and I had just picked up a bunch of metal fence posts and stacked them in the back of her car. As we neared being done I had a flash of panic realizing that the points were aimed right at us if we got in an accident. So I turned the whole pile to be cockeyed so it wouldn't be dead on. On the way home we hit construction. We stopped at the giant flashing traffic light. The guy behind us didn't. We got rear-ended by himself doing 60 plus. I instantly had that same flash of panic and looked over at my GF. She was fine. I looked down. I'm fine. Look in the back. The fence posts are firmly wedged into the sides of the car after being slammed forward by the rear end crumpling. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.